In the Old West, each little town dealt with brothels in its own way. Some mayors and sheriffs looked the other way, others charged taxes and issued licenses because they knew those places brought money, information, and even helped keep men out of trouble in the streets. A quiet agreement, accepted by many, even if no one admitted it. In 1863, the Western frontier was a kind of lawless world. Dirt roads, towns popping up out of nowhere, people chasing land and gold. Any trip could end in an ambush, a fall from a horse, or some cursed fever spreading through the rivers and crowded camps. Even so, ordinary men kept moving forward, betting their lives on the hope of starting over. During the gold rush, many men headed west with little more than worn-out tools, stubborn hope, and a dog by their side. The dogs helped guard the camp, hunt, warn of danger, and were the main company on cold nights of work in the mountains. Without them, a lot of people would have given up on mining. In the 19th century Old West, long before they became Hollywood legends, cowboys drove huge herds across the interior, protected ranches, and kept the frontier moving. They inherited techniques from Mexican vaqueros and, with hard work and little glamour, became a symbol of American expansion. For many men of the time, it was simply a way to make a living. Tom Horn was born in 1860, and as a boy, he was already handling rifles and hunting like a grown man. Heading to the Old West in the 1870s, he moved through ranches and mines, worked as a cowboy, miner, and Army scout, always on the front line of the rough life on the American frontier, where he earned a reputation as a dangerous, respected man, a useful figure in land disputes. The so-called Earth Lodges shaped the lives of several peoples of the northern Great Plains in what is now the United States. Since the 1500s, these round structures served as shelter, storage, and places for rituals, bringing families together to share stories of hunting, war, and alliances. Later, on the reservations, many still saw these lodges as the heart of the village. In 19th century United States, almost every well-off family living room had a square or grand piano. But by the 1870s, engineers and manufacturers started betting on the upright piano, which was more compact, and it eventually took the place of the old models in American homes, changing the sound of evenings at home. In the so-called American West, behind the fame of cowboys, saloons, and duels, there were also people in lab coats handling the tough stuff. Doctors improvised clinics in hotel rooms, stitched up bullet wounds, pulled teeth, delivered babies, and tried to keep that frontier standing. Meanwhile, the town carried on, balancing risk and hope. Long before Columbus arrived, peoples all across North America were already making blankets that worked as clothing, bedding, and even currency. They combined animal hides, bark fiber, cotton, and strips of cedar in work so time-consuming that each piece carried history and status in the village. In ceremonies, these blankets were given as gifts of respect. In the days of the West's conquest, people who made a living from pawning became key players in the growing economy. They set up shop in mining towns, cattle points, or stagecoach stops, trading watches, guns, or saddles for quick cash, short credit, and the hope of turning things around the next day in a frontier where everything could change in the blink of an eye. In the Old West, everyone knew that written law didn't cover everything. A man of his word followed rules nobody needed to put on paper. Help a lost traveler, don't cheat at cards, defend your own people, take care of the land that fed you, and protect your reputation. because there, one mistake could cost a lot more than money. In the early 1870s, the Bloody Bender family ran a small travel stop in Kansas. Travelers who went missing in the area had almost always passed through there. One day, they vanished without a trace. No one knows if they died, fled, or blended into the nearby towns, but their name still haunts the stories of the Old West. In 1848, in Coloma, California, a group of men started digging and washing river dirt in search of gold. It was hard work, done with almost no tools. The fever spread, filled the roads with ordinary people, and shook the history of the American West. Many improvised basins and pans as sieves, dreaming of one lucky strike. Longley, known as Wild Bill, became a dark legend in 19th century Texas. He grew up on a farm, learned to use a revolver early, and started settling fights with bullets. He changed names, disappeared into other towns, and left a trail of dead behind him, until he ended up hanged, still young, in front of a crowd that wanted to see up close the end of that gunslinger. In the American West, what ended up on the plate varied a lot. People living on isolated farms depended only on what they planted, hunted, or raised. In frontier towns, though, you could find food brought in by train, saloons selling quick meals, and even canned goods, a sign of a changing country. The dinner table told a story of risk, hard work, and hope. Long before Christopher Columbus arrived here, many native peoples were already growing tobacco and using it in rituals, in war councils, and even to seal peace agreements. For them, it wasn't a habit or pastime. It was a way to speak with the sacred, ask for protection, and mark the most serious moments of life in the village and in their people's history. In the Old West, many women left behind big cities, bossy relatives, and arranged marriages. On farms, in saloons, or in small shops, they negotiated, ran businesses, and even defended land. At a time when almost everything was forbidden to them, the frontier became a real chance to start over, far from old male control and family rules. Since colonial times, Americans dug into the ground looking for wealth, but it was in the Old West that things really exploded. Gold, silver, and copper rushes, ordinary guys becoming millionaires and then going broke, packed saloons, violence, cheating, and a bunch of ghost towns left in the middle of nowhere that almost no one visits today. Coming from Pawnee, Oklahoma, the Dunn brothers lived on the razor's edge, bounty hunters when there was work and cattle thieves the rest of the time. They earned real fame after taking down two men from the Wild Bunch, George Bitter Creek, Newcomb, and Charlie Pierce. After that, nobody looked at those cowboys the same way again. In 1869, the first railroad linking the East Coast to the West Coast changed business in the United States, cutting trips that used to take months down to just a few days. But behind that progress, many indigenous tribes were forced off their lands with no voice and no choice. The promise of progress also brought broken treaties and violence. In 1886, C.S. Fly entered Geronimo's camp with rare permission, and when he observed a group of young Apache, he noticed something unusual. One of them was white. Called Santiago, he had been taken during a border raid, and in 6 months already spoke, ate, and moved like an Apache. To men of the time, he looked like a lost son of the Old West. In the mid-1800s, crossing the United States all the way to the Pacific was a job for stubborn people. Weeks in slow wagons, cutting cold, rivers without bridges, mountains without roads. Every turn could bring gold, new land, or sickness and attack, and no one was sure they'd make it back. With no reliable map, they relied only on their own group and a bit of luck. Around 1850, in the Old West, the livery stable was where travelers left and picked up horses, carriages, or stagecoaches. Usually attached to hotels or boarding houses, it was the gas station of the time, a place to care for the animals and get ready for the next stretch, deciding whether a person reached their destination or got stuck along the way. In the 1860s, in many towns and villages of the American West, public school was more a bet on the future than a sure thing. Some communities pooled money and put up simple classrooms. Others went without a steady teacher, leaving children to learn only at home or on the job, like their parents, something that shaped entire generations and the pace of the country. In the mid-19th century, while the gold fever swept across the West and thousands of adventurers crossed frozen plains and dry canyons, the so-called wolfers appeared. Hunters paid to clear travel routes and herds from attacks by hungry wolves, fighting for territory with them in exchange for a few coins and a whole lot of risk.